it is, without a doubt, Streets of Rage 4. Okay, so in all seriousness, the Streets of Rage franchise is an absolute classic. It's certainly the first one that I think of when it comes to side-scroll and beat-em-ups, and hot damn, that 26-year wait after Streets of Rage 3 for the 4th installment of the series was absolutely worth it in my opinion. This game is beyond amazing. The art style, the animation, the silky smooth gameplay, the music, everything about it is exactly what every beat-em-up should aspire to achieve. It is an absolute masterpiece, man. I cannot say that enough. I do think it's a bit unfair to compare it to the original trilogy though. During its 2.5 decades of silence after the third game, the gaming industry has naturally developed immensely, and you can really see it when comparing Streets of Rage 4 to its predecessors. The first 3 games are still amazing and iconic though, and all hold up really well to this day in my opinion. So, let's talk about them. Which of these goated games is the most goated? Kicking off with the first game, they immediately set the tone for what type of game you're getting into. The music, the visuals, everything blends together nicely. I've always loved the vibe that the intro has. That upbeat music along with the cozy urban environment in the background is truly a match made in heaven, and this combination stays strong throughout the whole game. And so here we are able to choose between a whopping 3 different characters, Axel, Adam and Blaze, who each have their own stats that, well, don't really mean much in the grand scheme of things. Adam is the slowest, Blaze is the weakest, and Axel can't jump as high. Pretty minor details all in all, but Blaze is my favourite character, so I always play as her in every Streets of Rage game regardless of stats, but well, it doesn't really matter in the long run. They're all relatively minor quirks. Anyhow, as you progress through each stage, the game naturally gets harder and harder, more enemies start to show up with more health, more speed and aggression, boss fights from previous stages are sometimes thrown in out of nowhere in later stages, with you then having to fight all of them subsequently again in stage 8, meaning that you have to deal with the annoying piece of shit twins a second time. Luckily, there's actually a way to cheese this boss fight, by using a move that I didn't even know existed for the longest time until I decided to look up ways to try and make my life easier with these two, if even a little, and this is what I found. Yeah. Thank you, internet. Fuck these two. Moving on. In addition to the basic but satisfying oh, hold up. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. So, before diving into everything else, I want to acknowledge the elephant in the room that is the OST. Jesus Christ, man, it should be illegal for a soundtrack to slap this hard. I feel the music definitely played a major role in the popularity of Streets of Rage. I can't imagine the franchise without these bops that just make you want to fucking dance, man. So yeah, anyway, as I was saying before, aside from the basic but satisfying jabs, grabs, throws and so on, there are also various items you can pick up such as apples and turkeys to fill up your health, money and gold to get more points, 1-ups to, well, get more 1-ups, police car icons to get more special attacks that get rid of all the on-screen enemies and deal a lot of damage to boss fights, and last but not least, a variety of weapons that you can pick up throughout the game. And honestly, some of them are pretty fucking OP, man. Like seriously, wait, excuse me? Why can't I fucking pick it up? What's a bit weird, but not that big of a deal about the weapons in this game is that you can't drop or even throw most of them except for knives and pepper shakers unless you get hit, and if you do drop them or pick up a different weapon a certain amount of times, they will just straight up vanish. The fucking pipe is ridiculous though. This motherfucker has mad range and does mad damage, and there's no limit on how much you can use weapons either as long as you don't drop them of course, so you can pretty much just straight up... Not bad. bad, not bad. But yeah, that's just about the gist of it for the first game in the franchise. As you get to the end of Stage 8 and confront Mr. X, you are given a choice. Be his right-hand man, or refuse. Obviously saying no is the canon ending, but even if you do accept, the game mocks you and sends you back to Stage 6. Nice. Not much else to say really, except that this game can be pretty fucking hard. It really doesn't pull any punches, and oh, what the fuck was that, man? So yeah, that's Streets of Rage 1. A great first game that gave a lot of leeway for even more greatness to the second game, and that is exactly what it did. Streets of Rage 2 really kicked it up a notch. Smoother animations, better gameplay, more enemies, more characters that, well, excluding poor Adam. He unfortunately got the short end of the stick after the first game. Bro got kidnapped in this game, and then wasn't even playable again until Streets of Rage 4. But I guess to make up for it, we got other playable characters thrown into the mix, namely Skate and Max. And unlike the first game, every character now has notable differences that make them more unique, encouraging replayability. In the first game, each character all had the same special move, being the cop car. In this game though, they all each have a unique set of special moves that only they can use, with an interesting risk-reward system implemented to balance them out. The special moves can be very useful and strong, and can be great for breaking up a group of enemies that gang up on you, making you briefly invincible, but using them will drain a small amount of health with each use. So you can either approach with caution and mostly use normal moves and throws, or you can just yeah, that sounds about right. Each stage is also a fair bit longer than they were in the first game, and there are different sections in each stage where the music and scenery will change accordingly, giving a very nice sense of progression. Well, and of course, speaking of the music, this game continues the trend that the first game started. This soundtrack is fucking banging, but that goes without saying, I think. Another small but really cool detail in my opinion is the fact that the enemies now not only have health bars, giving you an easier indication of what you're dealing with, but they also have names next to them now too, which is pretty cute actually, and I'm glad that Streets of Rage 3 and 4 also continued doing this. What's up, Brash? How you doing, Fog? You alright, Oxygen? How's it going, Wall? Everything else introduced in the first game, such as all the items and stuff, are of course all accounted for here as well, excluding some new weapons that were either added or removed. Oh, and speaking of, you can actually throw every weapon at will now too, so you don't have to carry one around or intentionally get hit if you accidentally pick one up or whatever, which is great. The overall combat feels much better too. It just feels, I don't know, much more crunchy. I love it. I also think that Streets of Rage 2 is a bit harder than the first game. Some of the new enemies can be pretty unpredictable, particularly this ninja guy and this boxing motherfucker who I really struggled to beat when I first played this game. Fuck you, you little piss stain. Oh, and in addition to the normal story mode, there's also a new battle mode introduced in this game, where you and another player can select a character and fight each other Street Fighter style, although it ain't no Street Fighter. It is cool, don't get me wrong, but it's something that I only play for like 10 minutes if I'm with a friend and then go straight to the main game. Get it? Go straight? Cause that's the name of one of the tracks? Yeah, okay, I'll see myself out. And that is Streets of Rage 2. A massive improvement over the first game in pretty much every way. And it only has one ending, keeping everything simple. Something that the third game really wanted to, experiment with. Along with pretty much everything else, which, yeah. So, the third game is where things get unnecessarily complicated. Upon Western localization of this game, they made some highly questionable changes that just don't make any sense at all. First and foremost, They made the game so much harder than it needed to be. It's fucking insane, man. This site here, which I will of course link in the description, showcases all of the differences between Streets of Rage 3, the international release, and Bare Knuckle 3, the original Japanese version of the game. I'll only be going over the most notable or interesting differences, so you can check it out if you're interested. And so anyway, it says here that Streets of Rage 3 moved all the difficulty settings up one, so normal mode in Bare Knuckle 3 is the equivalent of easy in Streets of Rage 3. Which is just... Huh? What the fuck? Why would you do this? The first two games were already hard enough, even on normal. This is just overkill. Some enemies even have several more life bars in Streets of Rage 3 for some weird reason, making boss fights like Yamato an extreme pain in the ass due to him having 9 bars of fucking health, divided into 3 separate samurai that you have to fight one after the other. Jesus, man. You know, I've heard people say that Bare Knuckle 3 on the hardest difficulty is easier than Streets of Rage 3 on the easiest difficulty. And you know what? They're probably right. They changed a lot of things in the international release, man. Like, I think one of the most interesting changes in this game was definitely the removal of, this fella due to, reasons. Although apparently a playable version of him was actually still coded into the ROM, just that his mini-boss was removed and replaced with Shiva being in the boat in the back instead. Pretty bizarre. Other notable changes between the original game and Streets of Rage 3 include the different sound effects, the color palette of each character being redrawn, the story being almost completely altered and rewritten, and the lack of an intro in the international release. It really is quite bizarre, man. It almost feels like a completely different game. It just wasn't needed at all. I never understood regional differences between games. It just never made any sense to me. You may as well just make a completely different game at that point. And if I were to recommend the best Streets of Rage 3 experience, then I would absolutely urge people to play the original Bare Knuckle 3 instead. It is way better in my opinion. This version of the game is honestly just way too frustratingly difficult. And I mean, yeah, they're all pretty hard games, all 3 of them, but the Western release of this game is genuinely the only one that made me wanna fucking... Anyway, when it comes to the actual game itself, well, let's just assume the superior version of the game, then I think it genuinely is probably almost as good as the previous 2 games. It's more fast-paced and has more playable characters, well, excluding Adam again, but including newcomer Dr. Zan and Skate from the previous game who... Wait a second. His name is fucking Sammy in the Japanese version? Wow, okay. I didn't know that. In any case, we also for the first time in the franchise have cutscenes which are pretty bare bones and don't even have any music playing or anything, but it's still cool I guess to see some dialogue. And lastly, this game also has more weapons, enemies, and oh for fuck's sake, not you two again. And cheats, which, with the international release, you're probably gonna need. And while the first 2 games did also have cheats, they didn't have Super Axel.
Holy shit.
But I guess in exchange for that, we got a very, very different sound and soundtrack. It's not bad, but it's just not Streets of Rage. It is very experimental, just like the whole game really. I mean, I like a few of the tracks, but for the other 90%, it doesn't hold a candle to 1 and 2. Like, literally as soon as you boot up the game, you feel the difference in... what? Man, what the hell is this? And like I said, it's not just the soundtrack that's experimental, the whole game is. It loves to play around with its environment. From this seizure-inducing club to this annoying train thingy that does way too much damage. The story is also much darker than the first 2 games, with 4 different possible endings, although one of them is pretty much there just to mock anyone who plays on easy mode. And the other 3 all have different ramifications depending on which one you choose or fail or succeed in doing. Like, during the final boss, if you don't beat him within the time limit, then all the bombs that Mr. X planted will explode, destroying much of the city and killing a lot of people. But if you do beat him within the time limit, then you get the canon ending where that obviously doesn't happen. The other ending pretty much leaves on a cliffhanger, and leads to a completely different level if you fail to save the chief of police in time in stage 6. This type of open-ended story with branching pathways is interesting, but I honestly think I prefer the more simple nature of the previous 2 games, as well as the 4th. I just don't think Streets of Rage is the type of franchise that needs a more convoluted and open-ended story like this. That's just my personal opinion though. Whew, and that just about wraps everything up. The last thing that I'll quickly mention is the battle mode that Streets of Rage 3 also has, which, yeah, my opinion on it pretty much remains the same here too. Anyway, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm not gonna count Streets of Rage 4 because it would easily be the most goated game if I were to include it, but for the other 3, for me, it would go like this. Streets of Rage 2 at the top, then Streets of Rage 1 and Bare Knuckle 3 below it at about the same level, and well, the inferior version of Bare Knuckle 3, yeah, you already know. But that's it. Thanks for watching.